What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome back to MKO Boxing, aka MKO Pugilism, where we talk all things boxing. Like and subscribe on YouTube, follow on TikTok, all that good stuff. So let's get into this one. So just a few days ago on Wednesday, it was kind of like I think it was a Wednesday afternoon for us here in the UK. But over in Australia, we had Keith one-time Thurman coming back to action for the first time in 3 years against Brock Jarvis, a prospect from Australia. Brock Jarvis seemed to be the slightly bigger guy going into this. Thurman was sort of playing his mind games. And this is one of those fights where you have the experienced, accomplished guy, but he's been out the ring for a long time, 3 years in Keith Thurman, versus a guy that's kind of an average-ish fighter, decent fighter, but basically an average sort of basic fighter. Has taken a loss a few years ago. I think that was back at 140 light welterweight, and this one's 154. So going into this one, the question mark really was just over: did Keith Thurman have anything left? And would he become old overnight? Would those 3 years of inactivity affect him in that fight? He's a very injury-prone fighter, so would the injuries affect him? These were really the question marks going into this fight, because outside of that, we know resume-wise, Keith Thurman's got a better resume, the better abilities and skills and everything loaded in Keith Thurman's favor, really. But it's just a matter of with the inactivity, the injuries and what he suffers from, will that affect him? And fortunately for him, none of that affected him. Keith Thurman was able to deal with Brock Jarvis very, very quickly within 3 rounds. And it was one of those fights that from the opening bell, from before the opening bell, you could tell Thurman brimming with confidence as they stared each other down. Brock Jarvis was, he was ready to go, but you could tell there was a bit of a shake there. You could tell that he didn't seem like 100% confident. You could tell like visible signs of a bit of nerves there. And that showed in the fact that the first bell rings, he goes straight out after Keith Thurman, goes on the attack, bull rushing forward. And Keith Thurman was quickly sort of able to find his measure, catching him with counter shots. There was a shot that Jarvis hit Thurman with that was pretty good, little right hand. But I mean, overall, Keith Thurman was very, very quickly able to just sort of get the measure of Jarvis and line him up for counter shots. And you could tell that this one, even from very, very early in the fight, was not going to go the distance. And the same thing just kept happening. Keith Thurman using his ring intelligence, using his movement. Brock Jarvis coming forward, trying to throw blows and just getting clocked with counter punches all night long. Well, didn't even last that long. Only lasted 2.5, let's say 3 rounds. But yeah, so Thurman lighting Jarvis up. You could see the big gap in skills. Jarvis just sort of walking onto shots, walking into range, and Keith Thurman countering him. And a guy that can punch like Keith Thurman, it is just a matter of time. So Thurman on the back foot, countering, using that movement, using the pivots and the foot speed and everything just to get away from Jarvis and then land the big counters. And then round 3 comes, more of the same pattern. Jarvis sort of bowling in, trying to do damage to Keith Thurman, but then getting hit on the way in, getting hit with counters, having no response, no answer, no head movement. He didn't really, apart from just bombing forward and rushing forward trying to get to Keith Thurman, he gets hit and there's no solutions coming from Brock Jarvis. It was just, he was just ripe for the picking. He was like a perfect, he turned out to be like a perfect opponent for Keith Thurman, just coming forward, walking onto shots, and Thurman just had to sit back and line him up for the power, and that's what he did. And, gave him a nice right hook to the body, left hook to the body, and then brought it up to the head. And that's all she wrote. Jarvis, he gets up and then goes down again, and it's all over in round 3. Very, very good performance by Keith Thurman. Obviously, we don't know what he can do at sort of world level, but at least we know that he's got something left. He's got a bit of power left. He's got movement left. But I think this fight is one of those where, yeah, one-sided beat down, a demolition job. Congrats to Keith Thurman. And I think we'll sort of know more about where he is as he fights again. I mean, you saw him after the fight, after beating Jarvis, going after Tim Tszyu, because Tim Tszyu and Sean Porter were commentating. So he was going after Tim Tszyu, saying, Tszyu, you're next, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, with Tim Tszyu, I'd have to fancy that Tim Tszyu could probably get the job done against Keith Thurman. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens next with him. There's other fighters out there that he can go against, guys that are a bit washed up, like Jay Warrock and people like that. He could maybe fight. But yeah, I think we need to see probably another fight from Keith Thurman against some half-decent opposition to really be able to tell where he is. But one thing we know, the power's there. He's got boxing skills, boxing ability, and yeah, he's still got a little something left in the tank. So good on him. Let me know what you thought about this fight, this one-sided demolition, in the comment section below. Until next time, it's MK Boxing, over and out.